So, Command & Conquer Rivals has been revealed, and I'm going to share my honest thoughts on the game. Firstly, on the actual trailer. It's a traditional mobile game trailer in the sense that it does contain a lot of fancy animations. It does contain actual gameplay, which is not really surprising, but it's nice to see that they at least did include some of that at the end. It's just typical mobile strategy game trailer. You've got two superimposed human commanders which are controlling units and stuff, and then it looks very fancy. Obviously the actual game isn't going to look anything like that, but you do see actual gameplay at the end of the trailer, and the reaction was fairly negative. I think the trailer, as of the making of this video, has about 95% thumbs down, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So the community reacted quite negatively to it, which is understandable because EA built up at least a little bit of hype, and it was a huge disappointment because, as unrealistic as it seemed, people were still hoping for a proper desktop PC, a real-time strategy game. Maybe Generals 2, maybe Red Alert 4 or Tiberium 5, who knows. In any case, this was fairly disappointing, and it wasn't super disappointing to me because I had some information about this game prior to its reveal, and to be honest, even then when I got that information, which was a while ago, even then I wasn't too disappointed because, to be honest, this was all I was expecting, and EA had released a couple of other Command & Conquer mobile games before, and even more were in the developmental stage before they were cancelled, so it wasn't really too surprising. There are a couple of issues with the game. Obviously it is sort of a strategy game. It's not a traditional real-time strategy game, but at least it's not tower defense, at least not directly. But it does come with all the shortcomings this game would come with. You have, at least from what I've seen so far, it seems to be pay to win, or at least you can influence your luck quite a bit by purchasing, I don't know, pink Tiberium crystals or whatever. I've made that joke a couple of times now. And there's also the issue of the game being quite limited, obviously. It seems to be single screen for most maps, at least from what I've seen. I haven't dived too much into it, and I'm not quite sure how much has been revealed at this point because I haven't dug through absolutely every screenshot that is available. So there isn't really a big scope. It's only 1 versus 1, at least according to the trailer video's description. And apart from that, there's also a couple of issues with the game within the franchise. So this would have worked a lot better if it had been announced differently, and for that let's just look at the previous mobile games. We have Tiberium Wars Mobile, the one with the Plateau of Fang. I'm still not over that. That was a little bit of a weird sort of round-based tower defense game. It is not the worst game ever, and if this wasn't a Tiberium game, I think I would have found it kind of interesting. It also has almost parts of a city builder in certain ways. And then we have Red Alert for Java-based mobile phones. That one's actually a real-time strategy game. You do have resource gathering, you do have your base building, you do control units in real time. It's still very limited. It feels like a highly trimmed-down version of Red Alert 2 with some Red Alert 3 thrown in. We do have Tiberium Twilight Mobile, which is actually a fairly faithful adaptation of Tiberium Twilight for mobile. It's still more limited. Again, you only have a maximum of 2 players on the battlefield, but it worked actually exactly like Tiberium Twilight, the core game, in the sense that you do have your crawler, you do produce units, there's a cap, you do produce them to counter other units. The system is a bit broken, but in its basics it does kind of work. You take over buildings to gain advantages. You can choose different crawlers, offensive defense in that sense, and you can place buildings. It is trimmed down once more, it kind of has to be, but that's actually the most faithful one. Whether a faithful Tiberium Twilight game is anything good for you is a different story, but all by itself that's actually fairly faithful, and the one that's probably best is Red Alert for iOS, iPhone and iPad. That it looks a bit like Red Alert in Generals, but it's more of a trimmed down version of Red Alert 3, once again, with limitations. You've got all 3 factions, but they're fairly similar. you do have only 2 players at maximum on the maps, but the maps are large-ish, and it is a trimmed down version of Red Alert 3, but that's a real proper strategy game. You can still say it's not that great, but it's definitely the best of the bunch. It does come with this proper story mode, as does the Java version, which actually bridges Red Alert 2 and Red Alert 3. I'm not quite sure whether anyone was asking for that, but they did do it nevertheless. That is probably the best of the bunch, but to be honest, even if that had been the new game, as in a proper real-time strategy game, then that still would have been an issue, because all these previous games are companions to the main games. So it's not like they give you the Plateau of Fang Tiberium Wars mobile game and say that's a new Command & Conquer. No, that was a companion to the main game, Tiberium Wars, which is generally well received, and of the last trilogy of games might be the most popular. It probably is, or rather Kane's Wrath is, but that's just the expansion pack. The same is true for the other games. Red Alert for iOS wasn't the new Red Alert. That was a companion to Red Alert 3, which, well, I think overall is probably less popular than Tiberium Wars. It's still a proper RTS, one of my personal favorites. So that's the problem here. If they had announced this alongside Generals 2, then nobody would have cared. People would have said, oh great, it's another EA cash grab, and then would have moved on to be super hyped about Generals 2. But there's no Generals 2. Maybe they are going to announce another game at one point, but it seems unlikely, at least in the sense that why wouldn't they announce it now, or why wouldn't they announce Command & Conquer Rivals later? Maybe there's some marketing decision behind that, I don't know, but there's already a lot of negative attention towards this game at this point, so that ship has kind of sailed. I mean, people will still be hyped if Generals 2 would be next, which I don't think it is, but why not buffer the negativity that Rivals generated by announcing it alongside another game? Of course, maybe they thought that's going to steal the mobile game's thunder. I don't know, and I don't think there's a proper Command & Conquer RTS coming anyway, so it doesn't really matter. There's also the ominous Chinese Red Alert mobile game, Red Alert Online. We're still not entirely sure whether that's an official game. I mean, it does have the EA logo on it, but that only means so much. I can put that on any game. It's a bit dodgy. It seems to be another pay-to-win, the Clash of Clans clone, from what I've heard. I haven't really played Clash of Clans, and I've seen gameplay from that game, but I can't really judge it all that well. It doesn't really look good. It looks like Red Alert 2, but graphically altered a little bit, but gameplay-wise, apparently it's another pay-to-win scenario in one way or another. So this doesn't really give us much hope, and it's another game where it doesn't have it's not a companion mobile game. It's a standalone in that sense, but nobody really cared about that all that much, because that was intended for the Chinese market anyway, and it's a bit different from Rivals, because Rivals was revealed, was a big reveal and everything. Greg Black generated some buzz on Twitter before that, because he came back to EA and he sounded quite excited, and he seems to be quite positive about the game, more positive than a lot of other people. Oh well, and the last issue I see with this game is that so the problem is, let's just say this game tanks. So the thing is, I don't think it's going, well, I'm not quite sure why it's going to tank, but I think it's going to make at least some money, because some people might not like it. A lot of people don't like it, but we also have to take into account that a lot of those downvotes will come from long-term Command & Conquer fans of one way or another, and they're not going to like the game for obvious reasons. And that is fully understandable, but there might also be people who are new to the franchise, the so-called new generation they were speaking of, and they might just not care, which is okay. If you're not invested in the franchise, you might not care about this being some sort of betrayal for Command & Conquer, for the franchise. But here's the thing, let's just say the game tanks, then that might mean there's no more Command & Conquer, because they say, okay, so the mobile game tanked, we're not going to risk making another RTS game that might not make the money we wanted to make. But if it does succeed, it might also be taken as incentive to release further mobile games. So yeah, that doesn't mean that this is going to happen, because I can't predict the future, but I think we're not really in a good spot here, because if this tanks, it might not send the signal we want to send, which ideally would be, we don't want the mobile game, we want a proper game. So that wouldn't be quite the case. It could just lead to more mobile games in one form or another, but I don't think this is going to tank. It might not be as successful as EA's shareholders want it to be, but I think it will be okay because Tabarum Alliances seems to be doing okay, at least in the sense that it's still running after 5 to 6 years. And if it wasn't making any money, it probably isn't really difficult to maintain anyway, but if it wasn't making any money, they probably would have shut it down or not bothered updating it so it stays compatible with modern browsers, even though I don't have enough insight to really judge how much work that is and how much maintenance they really need. So even if it just has a handful of paying players, maybe it already pays off. I'm not quite sure. In any case, or maybe they just wanted at least one active Command & Conquer game in one sort of another. But then again, Tabarum Twilight servers are still off, so still online, but oh well. In any case, I don't think this bodes well. As for the game itself, it's a bit of a mishmash. Some of the units don't seem to be quite consistent. Some of them seem to be named incorrectly in that sense, but it doesn't really matter all that much. You've got this weird mix of characters. You've got Kain, who's actually playable in a sense, so you can pick Kain as your commander, which actually is a first. That didn't really happen before. You could play someone looking like Kain, but not Kain. Then we have Seth, so they dug out Seth, who should be dead, but this isn't really in the Command & Conquer timeline anyway. It seemed, well, if you just assume it is, which it really isn't, so this is kind of pointless, but I'm going to do it anyway. It should take either during or after, well, probably after Tabarum, the original Command & Conquer Tabarum Dawn, because everything's still green, at least that's what it looks like. But then again, the vehicles are more like Tabarum Wars, so it should take place after Sun, but it doesn't really matter. Oksana's there as well. She looks well, sort of like she does in Tabarum Sun, so I guess Seth is now in his late 50s to early 60s. I don't know, doesn't really matter. It's not consistent, it's not supposed to be, so this is point of speculation. Kain, trailer Kain has not received a positive reception. He looks a bit strange, his eyebrows look slightly strange. Someone compared him to Ming the Merciless, and I can't discard that entirely. He looks a bit off. Maybe they couldn't get his likeness for this game. I'm not quite sure what the deal between Joe Cookin and EA is in that regard. But then again, Avatar Kain from the actual game looks a bit better in that regard. It doesn't really matter. In any case, so this doesn't bode well for the future of the franchise. And I'm not terribly excited about this game. Am I going to play it? Well, since I played pretty much everything else, including combat cards and Tabarum Wars Mobile, I'm probably going to play it and just check it out and just maybe play it a little bit. I don't think this is going to have some sort of campaign. You know what? I haven't really looked at it. I don't really care. I don't live in Canada or America anyway, and apparently those are the regions that might get access to the alpha, so unless I can arrange something, I might not get access to that. I'll have to check whether I actually have a device that runs it or whether it can be emulated. I know there are Android emulators, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the game is going to run fine in that. We'll see. So I'll be honest, I'm not too disappointed, mainly because I had kind of given up already anyway. So if this had come a lot earlier, after Tabarum Twilight or so, this would have been a bit of a different story, but at this point, yeah, there's that. Oh yeah, but the Command & Conquer subreddit got the highest activity in probably forever, which is all negative, but, well, I guess activity is activity. Anyway, let me know what you think about the game, which is probably just hate comments, but that's okay. That's all right. And I will see you next time. Take care and goodbye.